afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar about what's new in Sovelia Vault 2023. I'm just going to give people another minute just to arrive, and then we'll get going. I can see there's still people joining us, so just give us a minute. Okay. Great. Okay. Well, I'll say good morning. This is what's new in Sovelia Vault 2023. It's going to be about an hour this session, and it will be recorded, so you should be able to play it back when you need to. My name's Chris Atherton. I'm one of the senior consultants here in the UK. I've been using Vault with Inventor for around about 15 years, both in industry and here at SYMETRI. And in that time, as I've been at SYMETRI, I've really got involved with our Sovelia Vault product and tried to really push and promote it where we can, because I see it as an invaluable tool for our customers. It's a way of automating all the processes and all the requirements that you have within your design team within Vault, so that it's managed in a controlled and scalable manner. So today's session, we're going to have a quick recap about the purpose of Sovelia Vault, what it actually does for us. We'll be taking a look at some of the key features that people aren't really aware of as much as they should be. Some have been in there a year, some have been in there 2 or 3 years, but just one or two key features that I think make a big difference in how scalable this solution is. Then we're going to go into the specific 2023 changes. We're going to look at the new functionality that's come in. Some of the functionality gets added throughout the year, so you may have seen 1 or 2 bits come out as a beta in the 22 releases and now formalized in 23. We're then going to talk about the changes in where you can get help, where you can get support, and the introduction of licensing into Sovelia Vault. Why is that there, and what does this mean for you? And then we'll just finish off by talking about the future and how you can get involved to drive this product going forward. So Sovelia Vault, it's one of many solutions from SYMETRI. We have solutions both for the manufacturing division, the AEC division, and for general engineering IT management. So that's kind of license compliance and distribution of software. When we're talking about Sovelia, Sovelia is a portfolio of products ranging from add-ins for AutoCAD and Inventor, giving you additional functionality in there, right up to Sovelia PLM, which is a full PLM system. The one we're going to be talking about today is Sovelia Vault. Hopefully you are all well aware of. If not, this webinar hopefully will give you an idea of some of the stuff it can do. But there will be additional webinars that can onboard you with that as we go through. So Sovelia Vault has been around for 7 or 8 years now. It's quite a mature product, but there are always requests that need that we have to add new functionality in, and there's a real drive at the moment to make sure that those are built into the software. The software itself is product managed by Burra over in our Norway office, and the product owner in charge of development of this is Graham Harrison, based in our Cambridge office here in the UK. We talk about Sovelia Vault as an automation platform, not as an add-in. And the reason for that is that it is there to be that platform for automating your Vault. It is there to give you a simple, easy way to effectively manage that automation and to allow us that platform to build custom automation for our clients where we need to. As you know, as we work through a workflow, just to recap on the purpose of this, between different states, you will have different tasks that you need to do. So it could be emailing someone to say that a file's ready for checking. It could be filling in check by or approval information. It could be you're pushing something for external review and you need to generate a PDF or send it or upload it to Dropbox. As we work through our life cycle, more and more tasks need to happen, and these tasks reduce the time that engineers have to actually design their products. So Sovelia Vault is really about automating these tasks, and it is therefore not necessarily a tool that the users understand. They know that these tasks happen, but they don't see the software doing that in the background, and that is how it should be. As we develop these tasks, as we do certain things, we're trying to do this in a manner that makes it not just easy for the designers using the system, but so that we can get the right information to other teams throughout the company. That means that we need to have a lot of control over what we're doing. So it could be you're generating a PDF and we need to name it in a certain way if it's going outside of Vault. It could be if you're sending something for external review that you need to watermark it so it's clear it's not for manufacturing. All of the requests we get, we take those, and despite the fact that Sovelia Vault or Vault is used in lots of different industries, the requests are quite often very similar from companies, and therefore the idea with Sovelia Vault is that we take those requests, take those things that are important to companies, and we build it into the software. Sovelia Vault has always been and will be driven by our customers. So when you make a request for the software, that gets added onto a site, which we'll take a look at later on. You can then vote on what's important for you as a customer. You can see the other requests that customers are making, and then we as a company will look at that and try to enact those into the software for you. So all the functionality you will see today has been driven by you, the customers. Sovelia Vault itself has a couple of key drivers that we try to focus on whenever we make change. So the first of all is taking those common requests, as I said, and building those into the software. So we have the key ones of BOM exports, secondary file format creation, property manipulation, and being able to email people. On the side of that, it's great being able to do these, but you need to be able to do it in a very simple and configurable manner. Part of the problem with some of the Autodesk solutions within Vault, so if we take the PDF, is you need to understand programming to be able to get what you need out of this. What we've tried to do is take something like PDF and make it very simple for clients to be able to configure themselves the functionality, and we're continuing to do that. We're trying to keep the user interface as simple as we can so companies can configure their own automation and build that into the software. We've also tried to make this scalable. So as well as triggering on state changes, we've made sure that you have manual triggers. We've made sure that you have options to build your own functionality using iLogic or to build custom actions and increase the functionality within here. To do that, we've also tried to think about what level of control you need, and we're going to take a look at some of this today. So the introduction of profiles and execute conditions over the last couple of years have really meant that companies have been able to really fine-tune what they're doing. The ability to prioritize jobs on the job processor and to be able to manage the job processor using the job queue tools really gives you a level of control and automation that many companies require. And most importantly, what we try to do is take that best practice from industry. We work across a multitude of industries with Sovelia Vault. I have put this into one-man bands, into nuclear and MOD sites, into furniture manufacturing, into luxury markets. It doesn't matter what the industry. some of the challenges and the best practice that you have can be taken and can be put into the software so it is available for all. So let's talk about some of the key innovations we've had over the last couple of releases, and then we'll go on to the specific stuff for 2023. So with the later releases, so I'm talking from 2020, 21, 22 and 23, you'll have seen a number of big changes happen in the software. The two biggest are probably the introduction of profiles and the introduction of execute conditions to our tasks. These were driven by customers' requests for additional control in terms of who could run automation and when automation ran. So we've made sure that these areas are built into the software, and it is a core part of what we do now. We'll take a quick look at that. So if we start with profiles, profiles are very much a way of building different configurations for different people. This means different things to different customers. So as an administrator, I may want to have additional automation that the users can't see. So I may run a different profile allowing me additional automation. It could be that I am testing a configuration change for Sovelia Vault and I don't want to roll that out to the users yet. I could be using a different profile there. But also we can scale this up from kind of a single design team to a large multinational where we may have different departments that need to run different automation, or maybe have to output files to different locations based on where they are or what projects they're working on. And so profiles are a way for us to define the different configurations that we need within Sovelia Vault and rolling out a specific configuration to a specific user. We've tried to do this in a manner where users will have one configuration, but the job processor itself will manage any job from any configuration. It understands who sent the job, what it's been asked to do, and processes based on that. So just to give you an idea of where this is, if you jump into Sovelia Vault, give me a second to find it, there we go. What you'll see when you start Sovelia Vault now is at the top of the screen you've got select profile, and here you'll have a default profile. Next to this you are able to define a new profile or take a look at existing ones. So I've got three profiles here. I've got one for testing, one for doing demonstrations, and a default one. If I need to, I can generate a new profile, and I can call this, let's call this 2023, and I can generate this based on either from scratch, based on the default, or based on an existing profile, should I want to. But hitting OK, that will go and create a new profile in the system for me. Underneath, we can see lists of groups, and we've got lists of users. And this allows us, again, to go in and say, well, I've got a specific user or I've got a specific group. Let's take a look at our shop floor users. I could take this purchasing team and I could change them to run a different profile. So when that user logs in, they are going to see different automation, or as they move tasks, their files through the process, different automation will happen. Just cancel that for now. To swap between the profiles at the top of the screen, again, we try to keep it quite simple. So you can go from your default profile and I can swap over to my demo profile. And here you can see, actually, I've got very few bits configured. But if I go on to my testing one, you can see I've got additional options and configurations in here. When a user logs in, it will read what profile they've been assigned and it will present them with the options that are available to them. Either tasks will happen as they change, or on the right click, certain tasks will be available to them. For now though, I'm going to leave us on the Sovelia Vault profile, our default, because this has got everything I need for today built in. But these profiles should allow you to then generates an area for you as administrators to be able to test and benchmark any changes that you're considering with Sovelia Vault, and build it into the software before you roll it out to the users. The next area that came in a couple of years ago that's really been quite critical for many companies is this idea of property compliance and our execute conditions. So these are two separate areas. Execute conditions you will see on every job in Sovelia Vault now. They are very much a way for you to determine when a job runs, when an action runs, or even an action set runs, under what conditions. So for instance, a PDF creation, does the file have to be released? Does it have to have certain keywords? Has it got to be in a certain folder, or have I got to be a certain user to be able to run that job? The property compliance is to give us control over state change. And this was based on the fact that a lot of companies came to us and said, well, Vault's missing a key bit of functionality. I want to be able to do 2 and 4 eyes checking. I want to be able to say that the designer, the checker, and the approver have all got to be separate to each other. So the property compliance that we built into the software is going to allow us to do those sort of checks. As we change state, we'll be able to not just check whether a job needs to be run, but we can actually check on the information against that file to see whether we are authorized to do something. So you may move something from work in progress to check, and it may fill in the author into the file. If you move from check to an approved state, we don't just want to fill in the checker's name into the properties, but what we want to do is check that that person that is checking the file is different to the author. And so our property compliance allows us to do these sort of checks. So again, jumping over to Sovelia Vault, you'll find that property compliance is down in our custom settings. Let me just minimize some of these so that we can see this one area. Okay, so property compliance. In here, you can right click and generate a new compliance. And within here, we are able to define certain checks that we want to happen. So I can come in and say, I want to check the engineer property, and I want to make sure that it is different to my Vault username. And when I'm talking about my Vault username, I have different options for how I want to review that. If I'm going to check that if I'm approving something, I might want to check that it's not the same name as whoever checked it. So again, I could look at the check by property, and I could say, make sure it is not equal to, and again, the Vault username that's sending that through. Okay. To give ourselves a little bit more control, this is why we have execute conditions. So execute conditions allows us to take something like this check and say under what context does it run. So I can go in and configure execute condition, and I can say that for certain users or based on certain properties of the file, this will or will not run. So in this case, I could say that this will run. I could just double click to say is equal, or if you right click, you've got other options, and I could say administrator in there. So this will only execute if it's the administrator. I could say it will only execute if it's not the administrator, otherwise it will just stop that from happening. It won't run it. So we have the option to build up criteria within these execute conditions. These are available throughout the software. So if you go into something like your secondary file formats, under actions, and I take a look at a released PDF, you can see here I have an execute condition that says the state has to be released. So even if I try and manually run this, it will not run the task unless I'm in a release state. And this is really giving users a lot, or companies a lot of control over their configuration and over their customization that they have. To see this in kind of practical terms, if I jump over to Vault, I've got a file here that is currently for checking. I can see that it's been filled in. We've got the designer properties filled in. And if I go to change state as this, I'm logged in as Dave Designer at the moment. I change it from checking to approval. What will happen is I'll get a dialog box that tells me I can't be that same person. D Designer cannot be equal to D Designer. And that will then stop that state change from happening. If I log out and log in as an administrator or as a different user, and I do that same state change, let's move that to approval, what is that will go straight through and it won't flag up as needing property compliance. So it's a very simply allows us that level of control to block change or block automation or state changes from happening when we don't need it. Okay. There are numerous other little bits that were added in over the last couple of years that you may have also seen, some bigger than others. Just two key ones that I have used with a few clients recently. So firstly is thick and thin client exports. So within Sovelia Vault, we have the option to export to an ERP system or export a CSV file or to a SQL database or an XML that we can use to load into other systems, typically an ERP system. What we're able to do as part of that export is we can include the web addresses for the thin and the thick client. So the thick client is the one that you have installed on your machine. The thin client is the web client or the intranet page that Autodesk Vault comes with. By including that link in your bill of materials, when you load your bill of materials into your ERP system, you now have a link against each item in your ERP system that can be clicked on to take you directly to the thin client where someone can log in and see the live information for that file or the latest released information for that file. And therefore, it stops us having the need to export data and import it into another system. So we don't have to take that PDF, export it with a different name and load it into another system. We can start connecting the dots between these systems. That's been driven by quite a few customers that we've been working with. Another one that's come up more and more is companies are trying to automate what they do with Inventor via iLogic. Hopefully you're all aware that iLogic can be run from within Sovelia Vault, and we can run that either as part of a state change or as a batch exercise. What you may not be aware of is that if your iLogic generates anything, Sovelia Vault has the capability to take those files and pull them into Vault as well. So let's just take a very quick look at that. If I go into my folder here, you can see I've got two files. And if I right click on these under Sovelia Vault, we've got our menu and I can come down to iLogic rules. Now these are ones that I have defined, and what I've been able to do is say, well, I want to generate a quote document. I'm going to do that either using the job processor or run it on the client. We use the job processor for now. And when I hit OK, that will send a job to my job processor, which is running on my other screen. So give me a second. There we go. And that will go through and start generating a quote document. That quote document is output to a holding area on my computer, and then that what Sovelia Vault will do is read the files that are in that holding area and pull them into Vault. And as it pulls them in, just give it a second to process, what it will do is it will rename, it will associate the file to the original document should we want to. It will set the state and revision and properties should we want to as well. same as we do with any secondary document creation. But what this allows us to do is really use iLogic to tailor and get exactly what we need out of the CAD system in terms of documentation and pull that in. So rather than just create a PDF, maybe we have certain specific changes that we need to do on that PDF. It'll take a second to run. There we go, start going in, and you can see here that that first document has been created, and that will go through. See if it will open up. That will go through and generate a quotation document based the information in that CAD file. Not sure what's going on there, scaling issue. So Sovelia Vault can really be used to push and generate whatever we need to, whether it's just standard PDFs or something very bespoke and custom. More and more companies are using iLogic with Inventor, and this is becoming a much heavier used part of the software. Okay, so that was some of the features that we've had over the last couple of years. Let's take a look at the specific 2023 new features that have been added in. There's a whole host of these. There are additional little ones as well as normal fixes and just bits of tidy up that have happened. But in terms of the larger features that we've got, the big new one this year is the introduction of watermarking. Watermarking is something that we've been asked for years. Where you are exporting something like a PDF or generating a DWF file, companies want to be able to watermark their drawings to show that something shouldn't be used for manufacture. This is particularly important if you're exporting that PDF outside of Vault where you don't know the state or the revision of that file, or you're sending it to a supplier, for instance. And so what we've generated is the ability to take whatever property information from the file that we want and build that into a watermark that you can then apply as you generate the PDFs from your drawings. We've also enhanced where we can output files to. So we already had some control within Sovelia Vault as to where we generated the files, either on the network or inside Vault. Some companies were very happy with that. The feedback we had was that we needed a little bit more control. And so what we've added in now is the ability to control the export location, both inside Vault and on the network, based on properties of the file as well. Model states, they came in Inventor 2022, replacing levels of detail and adding new functionality in. And what's been interesting over the last 2 years is seeing how customers use model states. They should be, or their primary use is to show different manufacturing methods, but companies are using them to show different options within files and use those options rather than using iParts as they previously would have. You can take a file with model states, you can place it into your design using a specific configuration. What's happening though, or the request that we had was that as you release that file that's got the model states, you want to be able to generate secondary file formats for each of those model states. And so we've taken that on board, we've looked at what we can do there, and we've built that in. So now for named model states, we'll be able to do secondary file format export. We'll take a look at that as we go through. There are additional properties you now have access to, additional fields for BOM export, property compliance, and for any configuration that you're setting that you have available. Again, we'll talk about that. My personal favorite, which is now the ability to set up a copy of properties from folders to files. So if you use your folders and you state, say, a project number and description on there, we can copy that into the files that are existing within that folder and keep those up to date. And then finally, the big change this release is the license management. So we're going to go through these and take a look. So let's start with the watermarking. This is probably the most fun bit of functionality that's in there, and one of the most requested features we've had over the years. Watermarks are generally used as a way of informing someone that they should or shouldn't be working on a particular document. And therefore, what we've decided to do is look at which file types would we use this on. So the main one was PDF, but also we wanted to make it visible on the previews that you see inside Vault as well. And so we've allowed the ability to generate watermarks on DWF and DWFX files. Many of you also use DWF and DWFX files in different ways. Many people are outputting these and using them, say, from SharePoint as a way of viewing files, or they've been using these and making them available through the thin client. And so this level of control really has been a strong contender over the last couple of years to be included in. Working with a number of you, we've taken a view as to when you need to apply these watermarks. So we have three options now that we can use. We can apply watermark in every case on specific state change, so a specific named state, or we can do it on all states except named. And that's the one that really the majority of people we think will use. You may want to put a watermark across a PDF if you're generating that PDF in any state other than released. And when you generate a PDF in the release state, you may not want that watermark at all. We also looked at what information you require on the watermark. And again, originally when we developed this, we just added in the state. Whatever the state name was, that was what got added in across your drawing. Working with you, companies had said to us, well, actually, we want a little bit more information on there. I might want the state, I might want the revision on there, I might want a bit of text that available on there. And so we have given you the ability to now configure an expression to state what information you want to go across there. Alongside that, we've also looked at making sure that you have options for the location and the color of that watermark as well. So watermarking, let's just swap over to our Vault configuration. Watermarking is part of the secondary file format creation that we have. And you can see here, I've got my inventor drawings, I've got a number of PDFs. What I want to do is, as I generate these PDFs, have the ability to generate a watermark. You are going to see a bit of a difference if you are looking at an existing custom action to if you're looking at something that is developed. And we'll go into this and I'll talk more about this when we go through model states. But some of the options may be different. You may need to go in just to get this to refresh. If we look at this this one here that I've generated, though, I've got an option here which is PDF for review. So I've wanted to create PDF for reviewing at any stage. I'm allowing it to be manually executed. I've not put any control on this, and therefore I want to control at what point that watermark is, make sure that people are aware of the state of that file if they send it out, so it's not manufactured, and therefore I want that watermark. So looking at the job that we've got, you can see we have our usual options: publish to network, publish to Vault, how we want to publish it, what name we want to use. Down at the bottom now, we have new options, which is the ability to add a watermark, true or false. What options do we want to use? Specific names or all states except a name state, or specific name states. In this case, I'm going to say all except released. And what that will do is that will put the watermark across in every state unless that file is released, in which case it won't watermark it. The most important part of this, though, is this watermark expression. You can come into our configurator here and you can start stating what properties you want to use from that file to be able to watermark. In this case, I'm going to put a bit of text, and then I'm just going to put the state name on there. Maybe I want to put the state name and the revision. Maybe I want a bit of text saying what that revision is. Okay. However, whatever information you require on there, you can build that on. If you look at some expressions, you've got your author, you've got your file locate, your folder location, should you need to. If there are other options that you want to have included on there, then we can look at whether those are appropriate and we can build in. I know, for instance, one of the recent ones that I got asked was, well, could we include the user information on that watermark so we can see who printed it? Underneath, we've got the option for where we want it. Do we want it at the top, the bottom, or diagonally across the drawing? And then what sort of color do we want to use? And again, you can define your colors. Once you got that, you can hit apply, and this will be come into effect within Vault. Now, jumping over to Vault, if you've got a drawing and I go down to my generate files, you can see here I've got my PDF for review. I can either run that on the client or send it to the job processor, and that will go ahead and create that PDF that is watermarked. Just in the interest of time, you'll see I've got some that I've created earlier based on a sample. So if I look at a file that was generated whilst this document was in work in progress, we just take the preview of this. You can see here that I'm getting the state, in this case, going across, so it says work in progress. If I look at the released version of this, so this was using the same action, what you will see is that watermark no longer exists. So whenever I generate based on a state other than released, I'm going to get that watermark, or if I generate a released version, I won't. If I go into my network location, and I've got a folder here called my watch folder, so imagine this a network drive. Again, it doesn't matter whether you're outputting internally into Vault or externally to the network, we have the ability to make sure that that watermark is included. The real great thing about this is if you use Sovelia Vault to generate your previews, your DWF previews as well, you will see the watermark on the preview of the actual CAD file itself. So if I go into one of my files that I have here, I think this one had it on, work in progress. Yeah, I must have something off the screen, but the watermark is included in there. Whereas if I go to one of the previous released ones, that watermark won't be across there. Now this is important because this means that as you view files on the thin client, that watermark is available, and if someone is allowed to download from there, they will have that watermark visible or not, depending on the state of the file. So for me, watermarking is probably the single biggest feature in 2023. It's the one that I think will be used an awful lot by companies, or by every company that uses Sovelia Vault. And as I say, pretty much everyone I've spoken to, this has been one of their requests. Moving on then, we've got model states. And model states, they've been interesting. Companies have started using these in different ways. But as I say, the main method at the moment is that you're using them as a way of configuring your products. Model states allow you to set what features are visible, change parameters, and have different eye properties for each model state. And therefore, you can have different configurations available both in parts and on assemblies. So you can have full configurations documented. When you go to Vault, you will see a single file inside Vault. So in this case, this Lego piece, there'll be a single file, but there are 3 configurations of that file. We can extract those out using Vault items, but for many companies, they don't want that complexity. They just want to be using the file where they need it. And when they release that document, they want to generate the secondary file formats, such as step files, for each of the named model states. And so that's what we've tried to do for both parts and assemblies. We've taken a look at the model states that are available, and working again with our clients, the decision was that if you were going to generate secondary file formats for a file with model states, you want an element of control. You don't want to be creating secondary file formats for any model state. You want to have named model states that you're going to create that for, as users might use these in different ways or create some that you're not aware of. And so what we've added in is the ability now on the secondary file format creations, that you can either export the master model state, or you can export based on a named model state within the system. Again, if I go to Sovelia Vault and I take a look at my step file here, this step file was, let's take a look at an older one. This step file was one that was created before the 22 release of Sovelia Vault. And you can see here within this area, there is no information for model states. Okay, so this is just something to be aware of. If you want to be utilizing model states, you will need to generate a new action and just replace it. Otherwise, your existing ones won't include the functionality there. But once you generate a new model state, what you'll do is you'll get 2 new options against the action. First is whether you want to use a specific model state or only the master model state. The second one is, if you are doing a specific model state, what name do you want to use? And if you don't put any in, it will just use the master anyway. Okay, so in this case, I could say option 4, or maybe I've got one as casting. What will happen when this runs, either as part of a state change or manually, is it will download the model on the job processor, and it will take this name and apply that model state. So that will become the active model state of that file. It will then generate, in this case, a step file based on that model state. So you can see here I've got some very simple options that I've set. I've got it for option 1, option 2, and option 3. And within these, I've also put an execute condition that says only run this if this has a model state. Again, this is a property within Vault, a system property that you can see against each file. We can change the naming as well. So again, the naming, I'm creating different outputs based on the option name that within the file. When we are talking about model states, we are doing this for any of the secondary file format creations that you see. So if I go down to a 3D PDF, for instance, I have the same option for a 3D PDF as I do for a step file. If I do this from an assembly and I create a step file, again, we've got the same option for the assembly. So allowing you the ability to output different information within there. Taking a look at Vault then, again, if I take the Lego model that's in that sample, and I'm just going to manually run this and go to generate files, my options appear here, and I can say go and create these DWFs. In this case, I'll create them in a visible manner so you can see them, but go create these DWFs, so create these step files and give me the 3 model states that are named within that configuration. And so again, ones that I did earlier or last night, you can see here the option 1, option 2, and option 3. Again, you control your naming, but those have been output. As the job processor processes each of these model states. You'll see them starting to appear inside Vault. And with each of these, we can then start taking a look at the state of these. So if I go into this first one, you'll see that we've got the 5 height configuration of this Lego piece. If I go into the second model state, you can see I've got a much bigger configuration of that file. And so you now have control as you generate your different model states, get an idea of some conventional naming for certain model states, and we can build those in to Sovelia Vault to generate the secondary file formats based on that, and then control when or under what conditions we run those using the execute conditions, giving you a lot of control over this. We are looking at what else customers want to do with model states. So again, if you have any ideas as to what you would like to see in Sovelia Vault, or you want to discuss with us how you want to use model states and what we can do within the product, we'd be interested in hearing and getting that feedback from you. Okay. So next thing that we had was the export location control. Sovelia Vault already gave us the ability to control the location that we wanted to go into. We had the option to use a specific folder or use the existing folder, and then we could use a property of the file, or we could use some static text and state how many characters of that we wanted to base a location on. So for instance, inside my Vault, if I jump over to it, I had a file, and under here I could say, well, wherever this file is, create a subfolder called PDF and create my PDFs within here. Similarly, certainly I know this is used out in Sweden and Norway quite a lot. You may have separate to designs a subfolder called PDFs, and within there you may have all your PDFs that are generated in a separate hierarchy. One of the requirements though that we've had recently off customers is customers wanted more control as to where PDFs were generated. So if I work on a kind of project basis, like you can see in my Vault here, many companies will want to go in and they may, under that project, have parts, assemblies and drawings set out, but also might have generated files, PDFs, or a third-party folder. And so they wanted the ability to be able to control which folder we write into. Similarly, if you are outputting to a network location, let's see if we've got it here. You may want to have that location or pick up on certain information and build that in to the location for your export to your network. And so what we tried to do is add in the options now in Sovelia Vault to allow you a bit more control as to where a file is generated within Vault. Again, this is based on user feedback, and so we're interested to see what else or what more control you need in there. In this case, I've got a DWF file, and you can see here that I'm outputting both to the network and internal to Vault. And what we've tried to do is make sure that when you go to configure your locations, you now no longer just have the option to do static text, although you can put it in. You can also add in different properties. So if I get rid of this bit that says project, I could say within here, when I'm exporting from a file, I want to take the project number and use that as part of that location. So you can build up this expression based on the properties of the file to decide where you want to export your files to. Similarly, if you're doing this inside Vault as well, same idea, you can choose the location and build up that folder expression as you want to. Again, we'll do make sure there's some videos online to show you how to set this up and how to use it shortly. The result of doing this, though, should be that if we look at our file, let's take that Lego file again. I'm going to go along to generate files, pick this file that has the set folder control in it and hit OK. The job processor will now kick in and start generating that DWF, both inside Vault and to my network location. As it puts it into Vault, I should see a subfolder appearing under here with the project number and underscore DWFS. And inside there, we've got our Lego project. And on my network, what you'll see is that that file has been generated. It says DWFX has been generated, and the existing file that was there has been moved into the archive folder. But again, that location has been controlled based on the configuration and based on the properties of files. Again, if there are other ways that other information you need to pick up on, let us know. We'll look at what the options are to build that into the software. Your feedback is really important on this. Okay. Last big one that we have is one called folder property copy. This is one of my favorites for an environment where you work on a project basis and you really want to get control over the properties applied to a file. So inside Vault, you have within your projects, you may have certain properties. In this case, I've got a company name that I've given it called SYMETRI. What will happen is companies that are putting data into that folder may want to apply this company name to the files in that folder. This could be done as the files are generated, or it could be done as part of a state change. So if I go in and I find my IPT here, you can see that it's got no company name against it. I've got the option under the right click or as part of one of my triggers to go in and to say, take the folder properties and copy it to the file. Let's do that on the client here. That's done that. Hit F5 just to refresh, and you'll see it's taken that name SYMETRI and applied it to the file. So nice and simple. But it's getting that information from higher up the tree. It's not getting it from this folder that I'm in, it's taking it from this project folder. So within Sovelia Vault, we have given options to be able to control the folder property. You'll find it under custom actions. It's called folder property to file copy. And you can right click and generate a new one. And you've got a couple of options that you fill in. So execute conditions, under what conditions does it run? And then the folder category name that you are looking for. So basically, what type of folder, parent folder, should it look for to pull the properties from? In this case, I'm not just looking for a normal folder, I want to pull the information from something categorized as a project. Once I've got that set up, I can right click and add new folder properties in. So I can state what properties I want to copy from the folder to the file. So in this case, if I take the company, could add that in. Maybe I had a certain description, and again, be careful with your properties so you can control the names. If you've got something called description on your folder and you've got description in your file and you ran this, it would take that was on your folder and write it onto the file. What you may want is folder description as a property, and then you copy that into the file. But again, very simple to set up. You can have multiple copies or as many properties copying to the file as you need to. And once you're done, you can go up to your action sets up at the top. In this case, I'll take my generic one. And within the action set, we can say use our different triggers. So we've got on state change, on check-in, or on add file. So that what happens is when it adds the file, when I add a file to Vault using the job processor, it takes those folder properties and copies it into the file. This allows you to have it on initial check-in of the file. So if I get in, put this to on add file, that's the initial check-in or the initial creation of that document. Which includes if you do something like copy design, as it creates those documents in a folder, it can then be triggering this to copy the properties across. Again, allowing you to use information across multiple projects, but be sure that the information is correct as you go. So it's really simple bit of functionality, but very powerful in terms of customers' workflows and how they want to work. Okay, there are lots of other little changes as well that are available in 2023. Those are listed on the website. I'll show you the location and where all the information is shortly. The biggest change that's come in this release, though, and this is from the for anyone using Vault 23 onwards, is we have introduced licensing within Sovelia Vault. We're introducing this into all of SYMETRI's software, and this has the benefit of allowing customers to be able to run trial licenses and being able to control how many licenses that they use within the system, rather than it being open to anyone to use. So when you start up Vault with Sovelia Vault installed for the first time, it is going to ask you to log into the system. Now, if you've not done this before, you will need to sign up and to generate an account. Once you've generated an account, an administrator can assign you a license and you will be able to log in, and from that point on it will work. Okay, so let's just take a look at how this works at the moment. I'm going to go into Sovelia Vault here. I've got a new drop-down menu where I can access support and help. In this case, I'm just going to log out. And if I restart my Sovelia Vault client, or my Vault client, when I log in, it is going to pull up this dialog box asking me to enter in my license information. So again, just give it a second to log in. Once it logs in, it will pop up that dialog box. Now, this dialog box will appear only on the client. It is not, you don't have to fill it in for the job queue tools or for the administration. But you can see here that I've got my email address and passwords, and I can continue as, or if you're a SYMETRI employee, you can continue here. But as a new user, you can either sign up or you use your email address and password. Now, just one note of warning, there is a small bug when it comes to scaling. There is a fix on our website for how to deal with that. But it is unfortunately at the moment just we're working on how to resolve that. But once you log in, I'll just log that on another screen because the scaling issue is not there. Once you log in, you won't have that pop up again, and it shouldn't be an issue. It's unfortunate that the scaling issue is there. We are working on how to get around it at the moment. With your licensing though, if you go to license.symetri.com, as an administrator, you will be able to see all the products, SYMETRI products you have access to. You'll be able to look at a user directory and you'll be able to add users against your accounts. So in this case, I can say this user here, I can add him in, and he then part of the pool of licenses we've got here. And then within your products under licenses, again, if you find your product, in this case Sovelia Vault, that user that's been added to your company, you will then be able to assign a license to that user. So this user now can log on and be able to use Sovelia Vault. If you need to unassign someone, you can take them and remove them off the software. Once you've done that, the users will be able to log in. The only thing they need to do is register first, so the details are captured by the system, and then you can assign the license to them. The beauty of this is you'll then be able to see peak usage for the software as you go through. You'll be able to see the license information and see how many licenses you have available and whether you're utilizing them all or not. It is simple to use, but if you do get stuck, contact our support desk and they will help you out. In order to help you with this, we have introduced extended our help pages. So if you go to sovelia.com, you'll see you've got our normal Sovelia pages, but also here under resources, you've got other options. So you can download a trial of the software. You've got access into the help, which will take you to sovelia.com help, where we have now started including the help documentation. You have access to product downloads as well. So if you sign in using your credentials, you'll be able to download the software yourself, including the job queue tools, client administration. And from here, you can access the licensing. That scaling issue, there is a README to show you how to correct it so that you can work around that issue. It's just a tick box to solve that. Within the licensing, if you look at the installation and licensing guide, there is information, one on how to install the software, but again, how to manage user licenses. So all the information is on the web and is available here for you. Okay, so do be aware of that. Licensing has come in, but if you get stuck and you can't manage it, just contact SYMETRI and we'll give you a hand to help activate those. I'd say there are software downloads, there is the help and support and the knowledge base. Also what you'll find is on the sovelia.com page, there is the area to suggest a feature. So you'll be able to suggest new functionality for us that we can then start looking to include in the software. I hope that's helpful. Some big changes in the software, a lot more control, a lot more functionality, certainly around model states and watermarks. So hopefully this will be a really good and positive release for everyone, where you can get the best out of your investment in Vault. Okay, and with that, thank you for attending. If you have any questions, feel free to drop SYMETRI a line and we'll take a look at those and get back to you. Okay, thank you very much.